Hello everybody, it's Paula here from Craftables, and I'm here to share our card from this week with you. This is our chocolate card, so it's a few 3D elements on there, and it's a very effective card. So I'm just going to show you how to get that one done. So if you've purchased the kit, everything will be in your kit. If you haven't, I'll go through and do the measurements as we go. So this is our card base, and I've just used a very dark brown base there, and that one is just a normal A5 cardstock size. And then I've gone ahead and cut out all my little squares. So we have a few here, so we've got these larger squares, so I've got 8 of these larger squares here, and those ones measure 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 square. And then I've just inked around the outside of all those pieces with a black ink pad there. So 8 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 squares with black ink around the outside. The next ones we're going to do is 1 1/8 square. So these are just a little bit smaller than the first squares that we've done. So I've got 8 of those again. So 1 1/8 by 1 1/8. And I've also inked around the outside of those ones with the black ink as well. And then the last size we've got is 1 by 1. So these are all 1 by 1 inches there. If you've purchased the kit, then the kit will have a light brown cardstock in the kit that has already had this embossing put on it. So if you are just doing this without the kit, then this is a lighter brown, and I've just put it through the Cuttlebug with an embossing folder and just embossed an image on there. And then I've cut them down to 1 inch by 1 inch, and then again I've inked around the edges of it. So I'm just going to ink around the edge of this one. So for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I will give you a little demo. So I've just got my black ink, any black ink is fine, and I've got what we call a little finger dauber, so it's one of those little ones you can pop your finger in, and I'm just going to put some ink on there, and I'm just going to really gently rub the black ink around the outside. Oops, it's not focusing there, around the outside of my edges, and that just gives it a bit more definition when you've got it brown on brown, so you can see it a bit easier. Okay, so that's all you have to do to ink around the outside. If you don't have a finger dauber, that's fine. You can use a sponge or just straight on from the ink pad if you want to, which means you just rub it around the edges straight from the ink pad there. Okay, so there's 8 pieces of those, 1 inch by 1 inch. The 1 inch by 1 inch are embossed with the embossing folders, and so we've got 3 piles of different sizes there. So what we're going to do to start with is I'm just going to glue down all of my larger ones there first. So all of my large ones, I'm not going to put one here, just so that when we come to do this little bite mark here, I'll show you how to do that. So we're just going to put one here first, one there, and then we'll carry on down here. So I'm just going to glue those on because it's a bit quicker. But if you prefer tape, that's absolutely fine. So one there, so we've got about 8 of them to put on, but we're just going to leave this one in the right hand corner here just for the very last one, just so I can show you what to do. So we're just going to pop 7 of them down for now. I'm just going to make sure we've got enough room there. Yep. Alright, so next one's going to go underneath there with a tiny bit of a gap between them. So I'm going to go ahead and put all 3 along that way. So the only one that's not been put down is that one there. Oops. So these are our little chocolate squares on our block of chocolates. Okay, so now also because of on here, we're going to cover up most of this side. I've only put another 2 pieces on here, but if you prefer, go ahead and put another one there, so we can put those 3 along the bottom there. Okay, and the last one just in this corner here. Okay, so we've got our 8 on there, and I have left this one just so I can, oops, sorry about that, just so I can show you how to do that little bite mark there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carry on, and I'm going to put my next size down. I've just put a bit of foam tape on the back of those, and I'm just going to pop them in the middle of those first squares that we did. So you can go ahead and do that. So they're only going to be a tiny fraction of a bit smaller. The bottle. Okay. Oops. Last one here. So we're just 3D'ing them a little bit just to give them some pop off the card. And the last one. There we go. So as you can tell now we've got 2 layers on there. So one's foam dotted up and the other one's flat. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and put these ones on the top now. So these are our little 1 by 1 inch ones with the embossing on, and they're going to go with foam tape over the top of those last ones we did as well. So it's a very quick, easy card to do once you've got all your bits cut down and ready to go. And it's a very versatile card, so you could give this to just about anybody, especially those that really love chocolates, like myself. Okay, and that last one there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'll show you how to do this piece up in this very corner here for our little bite mark that we have there. In your kit, I have given you a bite mark template. Now, if you don't have this, or you're doing your own without the template, all this is a half scallop punch. So I've just punched it with a scallop circle, and it's just a half punch, so it gives you that bit of a bite mark around there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my largest square, and I'm going to pop it on there like that, so that where my, sorry, I'll get that out of the background there. So where my bite marks are, I'm just going to cut around there. So I'm just going to try and line it up a bit better. And I'm just going to put a pencil mark around there, and then I'm just going to cut them out with a scissors. So I'm just going to lay that down. Draw around the bite mark, just like that. So I've got it on a bit of the, I've got one of the points out that way. So I'm just going to cut around where I've done that pencil mark there. And don't stress too much about it being really, really perfect, because it's just a bite mark, so it doesn't need to be super perfect. Okay, so that's our first one there. So our next one we're going to do is the one that we've got like that. So that's our next size down, and I'm going to stick that down there, and I'm going to cut around the back. So I've got my foam tape in the wrong place, so I'm just going to move that across a wee bit. And I'm just going to stick that down so that it's just a little bit there. So if you can tell, I've got my big one at the bottom and my slightly smaller one on the top. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to use my scissors and cut following those first cut lines that we did for the bite mark. There we go. So you might just get rid of that bit of foam tape there. Now, if this does happen, I can't do it right now because I haven't got my marker with me. You can use a felt marker, felt tip pen or something, and you can actually go in there and colour in that foam tape so you can't see it all on there. Right, so my last one is my little piece, my light brown piece with the embossing on. I'm just going to pop that onto the top of that one there, like that. again, I'm just going to flip it over and cut that out. So just following the scallop on there again. There we go. I'm just going to pull that down again a wee bit. There we go. Alright, so there's our bite mark there. Now this one now is going to go get stuck right on there. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, not quite lining up very well. We're going to use this one here, so I'm just going to position it in the right place, and I'm going to draw my bite marks on there again. Like that. So we want to actually cut through both of those layers there, so that's why I'm doing it with the pencil this time, just so it's a bit easier to cut. So I'm just going to follow my bite mark around. There we go. So I've cut through both layers there, so both of those layers are now there. So now this one is going to get layered on there like that, and that's how we do our bite mark. So I'm just going to put a bit of glue on the back of that one. Just going to pop that down onto my card. This one is a little bit skew off, so I'm just going to pop that back on again. That's a bit better. Here we go, so there's our little bite mark for our chocolate there. Okay, so now we're going to come to the part where we're going to do our chocolate wrapper now. So I've got a little bit of tin foil here, so just normal tin foil. I want to make sure that I've got enough to wrap around the entire card like that. And you don't need very much, so I've got maybe 2 inches thickness there. So what I'm going to do is we've got our wrapping paper here, and this one here measures. So I just grab my instructions so I know which ones I'm doing. Okay, so this measurement is 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. So 4 1/4 down that side and 8 1/2 across there. I'm just going to fold the whole thing in half. Just move some of this out of your vision so that you can focus on what I'm doing. There we go. Alright, so that one's folded in half. Now, what I want to do is I want to rip from that that halfway point up to about 1 1/2 here. So I'm just going to really roughly measure up 1 1/2 inches from that bottom piece. It doesn't have to be perfect, so just put a pencil mark there. Just do it a bit darker so you can see it there. Alright, so I've measured up 1 1/2 inches from the bottom up there. So I'm going to rip from that folded point all the way down to that 1 1/2 inch mark. So I'm just going to open it up because I don't want to rip this back piece, I just want to rip the front. There we go. So that's going to be the front of our little card thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up again. I'm going to put tape around this entire piece here so that we can put the tin foil on. So right along the bottom, through the whole lot there, on this side. So you want to cover the whole side there. Okay, a little bit there. Now I'm going to put a couple of strips on this folded point here, just so that when it goes onto my card, it's going to fold a bit better and stick down a little bit nicer there. Okay, so I'm going to peel the top layer off only to start with, and that's where I'm going to put my tin foil on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to really gently crinkle it up a little bit and then gently pull it apart, so you don't want to rip it or anything too much. And now I'm just going to put that wrinkled side just a little bit above my paper there. So I'm just going to follow that around like this, and stick that down onto my tape that we've got exposed at the back there. So that's easy peasy on there. So I'm just going to push it all a little bit flatter so it sits a bit nicer on my card. Get rid of any excess stuff we don't want to see by pushing it back underneath there. Okay, so I'm just going to put a bit more of the tape along the top, over top of my tin foil here. So just rub it down to make sure it's nice and flat. Like that, so just a little bit more tape along there. Just so it sticks down to our card really well. There we go. And along the top again. Nobody's going to see any of this underneath, so you can put as much tape on there as you like. Okay, so now we're ready to pop it onto the front of our card. So I'm just going to carefully take all the foam, all the backing off the tape. And once I've done that, I'm actually going to wrap this around the base of my card. So you probably don't need that much tape on there. Okay, so I'm just going to line it up along this bottom edge here. So I can stick that down just along that edge there and wrap it around to the back there. Just make sure everything's lining up nicely. There we go. Yeah, so that's our chocolate wrapper on the front there. The card's not quite, haven't quite stuck that down very well there, so I'm just going to pull it back. There we go, that's a bit better. Okay, so there's our chocolate with our chocolate wrapper, and I'm just going to fluff this up a little bit so it looks like it's being ripped a bit. Just rub it down like that. Just so it's all nicely messed up a little bit. Okay, so the last step is our little front piece here. So I've cut a piece of my brown cardstock here, and I've got that cut down to 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And I am going to round the corners. So if you have a corner rounder at home, go ahead and round those corners off. If you don't, you can just leave them square. It's absolutely fine. So right around all of those edges. And in your kit, you will have this in there already done for you. So I've just embossed this with a copper embossing powder with one of my paper artsy stamps that we've got here. And I'm just going to corner around those corners as well. So you could use any sentiment you like there. You could even just do one on a Word document and just print it out onto some cardstock and just have it on there as well. So it doesn't have to be a stamp. And now I'm just going to ink around the outside of my white one here, just so it stands off a bit from the dark. And I'm using the Distress Ink Vintage Photo. So again, I've got my little finger door bar. Just going to just gently rub around the outsides there. You just want a little bit of a colour. Okay, so once you've got that bit of colour there, we're going to pop some, you can put some foam tape on the back or some tape if you want. I want mine a bit flatter, so I'm just going to use a little bit of glue on there and pop that onto my round piece. Okay, it's just lining it up nicely so it's in the centre. There we go. And that just goes onto the front of our card there, like that. So I'm going to use a bit of foam tape on that just to make sure it's nicely stuck down, so it's, and we've got a bit of dimension on there, so just a little bit of foam tape around all the edges. You can put a little bit in the middle as well if you like, just to stop it sagging in the centre, which is what I like to do. Just a little bit there. Okay, so we're just going to pop that onto the front of our card. there. Give it a bit of a push down. Some more ripped bits of our tin foil. There we go. And that's our card. So you would put a piece of paper in the middle here so that you can write on there, but that's pretty much it, and it is a very quick and easy, simple card to do, and most people like chocolate, so it's a great card to give away. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining us, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you. Bye.